Michael Flynn had contact with Russian officials before President Trump took office. He states he can't remember if he discussed lifting sanctions. Vice President Mike Pence has called this a problem. You sit on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Will you call for a probe or an investigation into this issue?
Well, you know, that's a presidential personnel question, and, you know, having the Vice President express his concern about that, I think is legitimate, and, you know, this is something that the executive branch is going to have to handle itself, because there is comity, that is spelled comity, I-T-Y, rather than E-D-Y, between the branches, that, you know, the president does not, is able to determine whom he chooses for the personal staff, of which the National Security Advisor is one, similarly to the staffs that work in our office, and similarly to the staffs that work for the justices in the judicial branch. And, you know, the president is going to have to take responsibility for better or for worse in that. You know, with respect to sanctions on Russia, I think they ought to stick. I've been to Russia a number of times. I can say that when my wife and I were on vacation when I was early in Congress, we ended up being at a party where Putin was there, and my wife usually can engage anybody in conversation, and she tried twice with Putin and struck out on that. But, you know, what I will say is that most of the sanctions against Russia are for their annexation of Crimea and their invasion of the eastern part of Ukraine. In 1994, the Russian government signed an agreement, you know, with the United States and all of the European countries and the former Soviet republics, that Ukraine and Kazakhstan would give up their nuclear weapons. And in exchange, Russia would agree to the boundaries as existed at the present time, meaning 1994, you know, of all of the boundaries in Eastern Europe, which had Ukraine, or Crimea as Ukrainian, and which had the sovereignty of Ukraine, you know, over the eastern part of their country. Putin broke that agreement, and that's why the sanctions were there. Until Putin starts living up with agreements that his predecessor has made, you know, in the name of the Russian government and in the name of the Russian people, the sanctions should stay on.
Well, having you're sitting on the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Well, I've only been on there for 2 weeks.
Well, I know, but do you have concerns about what's going on with our president's relationship with Russia, with Mike Flynn discussing these things before the administration had even started office? And since you mentioned it, do you have a problem or an issue with Steve Bannon sitting on the National Security Council?
Well,
I just want to know your opinion.
my opinion is that this is the president's call, because it's his National Security Council, you know, and he makes the calls and accepts the political responsibility for whom he puts on that and whom he doesn't put on that. You know, there's nothing that Congress can do to say that Bannon can't stay on the National Security Council, because this is in the executive office of the president. We're under comity between the branches of government. We don't muck around with that, and he doesn't muck around, you know, with who we have on our staffs advising us. You know,
do you personally have a problem that some generals have been pushed off and military experts, and Steve Bannon is on that?
Well,
I'm not saying you can do anything about it, but what's your opinion?
You know, if anybody here is able to read Donald J. Trump's mind, please stand up and you'll be recognized right away. I don't even want to try to do that, and why he made that kind of decision. Marie Nowak's bonds of you walk with Cutler, yeah. Okay, yeah.
I also want to echo her statement. Thank you for coming here today.
I'm going to have to ask you to go back under your seat.
Oh, yay.